Thank you so much. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. And oh wow, these lights are bright. Whoa. So when Angus sent me a message to say, I want you to come to Berlin to speak, I said to him, what do you want me to talk about? And he said, well, whatever you feel like. It's an open thing. I sent him this draft because I saw in a few messages that he was looking for drafts. So when I sent him this draft, I sent a message saying, I know it reads like an article because I'm just not used to writing things down like this. And tell me if you think it sounds like a plan. And he sent me a message back saying, you're a legend. Legends can do whatever the hell they want. I don't even need to read this. And I was like, that's the best thing someone has said to me in a hell of a long time. So here I am. I call it spiritual sweat. Because what the hell, when you work in a bar, you're surrounded by the stuff, right? Spirits everywhere. And then you're from India, you're expected to be spiritual. But when you are surrounded by it all the time, in a journey that lasts 4 decades, you realize that it's going to teach you to be spiritual as well. Because when you work in a bar, and you sweat like crazy when you work in a bar, if you've ever been to India, you know what the temperatures sometimes can be like. And I thought that was apt, because it was a journey that was not expected. I began because I wanted to be a vet. I mean, as far as I can remember growing up, the only plan I had was to be a vet. And I got into vet school. I really studied hard at mathematics because it eluded me. I mean, I was lost when it came to it. But I knew that if I wanted to be a vet, I had to study mathematics. I got through, got admission, and then the family doctor comes into the picture and says, what the hell are you doing sending her to vet school? She has so many allergies, she's probably going to spend more time in the hospital than the damn animals. All right. Parents come along, pull me out and say, oops, not happening. I didn't have a plan B. So they decided for me. My aunt and my mom said, well, she's the only one who spends time in the kitchen, so what the hell, let's send her to a hotel school. She'll probably do well there. I went there. Completely lost for the first 6 months. I had no idea what I was doing there. By the end of the year, I figured, okay, yeah, cooking sounds like a plan. I think I should become a chef. So I spent the next 2 years working really hard at skills, learning how to use a knife. One of the holidays, summer, I think it was, in my second year, I went to a little city for a break, and a friend of mine introduced me to the Chinese kitchen there, and he had friends there. While I was chilling with them, developed this really major crush on the manager there. Chinese too. But that got me into the kitchen. And that got me learning Chinese cuisine. I was fascinated by it because there was so much structure. There was so much technique. So I spent the next 2 years learning to become a Chinese chef. At the end of 3 years of hotel management, I was offered a job at a 5-star hotel in the kitchen. They promised that if I worked for 6 months in the main kitchen, they would then transfer me to the Chinese kitchen. I thought it was a fair deal. And there I was. Okay, main kitchen, the only girl in the main kitchen. Guys everywhere, just me. The head chef of the main kitchen was an old guy who I think disliked me with a vengeance. He didn't really show it, but he ignored me completely. 6 months, I slogged it out. I was perfectly happy. I said, okay, 6 months up, time for me to be transferred. So I tentatively went and said, so will you now transfer me to the Chinese kitchen? And he looked at me, and then he looked away and said, So I walked away. I waited another month. And then I waited another month. Nothing happened. And I thought, man, 8 months almost I've lost out on. I could have been brilliant by now. So I quit. And I decided to look up an old senior of mine from college who was the manager of a Chinese restaurant. I thought, hey, standalone restaurant should be easier. The chef there can't be that bad. He said, all right, come on. Work in service. I said, cool. And then I tried to get into the kitchen there. Sheesh, the chef there was even worse. I mean, he just pushed me out and said, don't come into my kitchen. She asked too many questions. And he banned me from the kitchen. So the manager said, well, now you look after the restaurant really well. Handle the bar as well. Okay, handle the bar as well. I'd spent 2 years only focusing on the kitchen. Sure, I had theory of the bar. I mean, if you study 3 years of hotel management, you can't not have it. But making a drink, really, I had no technique. I just knew the recipes. Theoretically, it was all there. And by the way, the bar, it was a little side station, okay? At one end, the wall, a little side station, glass shelves on top, cupboard at the bottom, and a little space there where I could actually stand there where everyone was watching me from all around. I wasn't even behind. There was no bar to be behind. And so I made my drinks there, and my first drink. So I had to go out and take the order and come back and make the drink and then send it out again. I went there to take my first drink order, scared out of my mind. The guy says, I'd like a martini. I asked all the right questions. Do you want it shaken or stirred? Gin, vodka? How dry would you like it? And then I went back. He asked me for a dry martini. I went back. I looked, picked up the bottle of gin. Then I'm looking for the vermouth. Nothing there. No vermouth. I went to the manager and I said, man, there's no vermouth on your bar. How do you expect me to make a martini? He looked at me and said, well, that's your problem. The guy before you probably handled it. Now, I don't care. You figure it out. And if you can't make it, maybe you should just go back and say, I'm sorry, I can't make this drink. Can I make you something else? But if I did that, I didn't know that something else either, did I? So I said, okay, what is vermouth? Went back to the class. Fortified and aromatized wine. Okay, I can fortify, add more gin. Fortified, now, aromatized. How do I do that? I see a bottle there which said Cinzano Aperitivo. Very similar, very close to Aperol or Campari. So I took my stirrer, and oh no, there were no mixing spoons then. Took the stirrer, dipped it in, did that to shake off the extra stuff, used that, and said, aroma. Made my drink, and by the way, we had really bad glasses then, really bad glasses. Poured it, gave it, and then stood in a corner like this. And I told the wait staff, if he doesn't like it, don't call me, I'm not coming out. And I was literally in that corner, peeping out to see the expression on his face. And he had that sip. And he said, and he drank it and he asked for another one, and I was like, oh, saved. It might not happen another day, but I am saved today. And I think that is when I realized that it was probably a chance, an opportunity for me to do something better than I would have done in the kitchen. Because back there, nobody would have known who I was. I'd never be able to see the expression on the faces of the people who ate what I made. There was so much noise in the kitchen. It was hot, it was dirty, clanks, sounds, cuss words. And here I was, air conditioning, great music, beautiful people, and I could still do everything, and yet be able to see whether what I did was right or wrong, had the opportunity then to go back and correct it if the expression did not say, wow. And that was it. I was hooked. I went back home. I pulled out my book trunk, and right at the bottom was the book that my mom and aunt had given me when I was in college, which I didn't really look at. It was called The Trade of Bartender's Guide. Victor Bergeron. And that guy, and I never got to tell him or thank him, he changed my life. I picked up that book and I read it from the beginning to the end. Every word, every page, everything that was written in that book. Sure, he talked about rum a lot. But his ideology matched mine instantly. He was logical. He was smart. He said it like it was. And that was me. And that was it. I started my journey from that little side station in a little Chinese restaurant. And 40 years later, I'm still standing here, still bartending, and still thinking that it's the best job in the world. And I think what it gave me was a sense of self. And it allowed me to look at everything with completely different eyes. I did learn the menu there. There was a lot of stuff on that menu which was lacking in ingredients in my little bar. But we learned how to adapt, how to go back and say, okay, if this doesn't exist, what is it that I can do to make it better? If I don't have Kahlua, what can I do to make Kahlua or a coffee liqueur a possibility? And we made everything, every single thing. We made Kahlua, we made cream liqueur, we made coconut liqueur, we did vermouth, and only out of what was available to us, because we didn't really have a choice, because it was just not there. The market was that small, completely closed, and in a standalone, you could not get anything from outside the country. So we worked with what was available. We went out in the market. I looked for fresh fruit. And I said, hey, what can I do with fresh fruit? I brought in fruits, looked at the syrups that were available, did a mix and match, and started mixing really, really great drinks. And that was phase one, looking back. Once I had kind of established that, I went on to my next working place, and I thought maybe the bar there will actually be a bar and not just a counter, and it was. It was a nice bar, beautiful looking from the outside, but it was so high that I used to stand on a glass rack at all times. If I had to reach for something, I needed 2 glass racks, because I just couldn't. I was just like, yay, small. But inside, it was simply a wooden counter, wooden cupboards in the front, wooden cupboards at the back, and that's about it. There was one little tote box in which we had water, one little tote box which had soft drinks, and one that had ice. And every time I needed something, I would go down, pick it up, make a drink, give it out, all good. Bar number 3, I thought, okay, step up now. Oh boy. It was a little better. The front was now tiled, like you would have in the old kitchen at home. Tiles. Wood everywhere else. It had a bottle cooler. Wow. This was a little bit of a change from the tote box. But guess what kind of bottle cooler it was? It was the one that you had to dive in. Dive in, bring it out. You couldn't see a damn thing inside. And we had no phones, so we'd actually have to use a torch to figure out what we wanted and pick it up. The year I began was 1981. Yeah, I know. It happens to me. Jeet Rana's looking at me and saying, I didn't exist. This guy, and I thought he just might have been born, looking at me saying, no, I wasn't there either. Royden? No, okay. That's cool. That's good. It's all right. So from 81 right up to 88, the only bars I had were either wood or tiled with all this kind of stuff around me. Progression. Year 1990, my daughter was born. I thought I should take a little time off to look after her. And therefore, I sat at home changing nappies. I thought that it would keep me occupied quite a lot, but I got bored after a while because I'm used to standing and working with my hands. And I said, what the hell can I do now? The computer was born that time. So my dad said, I'm going to give you a computer. I was like, whoa. Big guy like that with a big fat box, floppy disk. Some people might remember the floppy disk. And we had the screen, which was all black, and one little dot that went like that. And the language was called Word Star. So I looked at the screen for a long time. And then I thought, okay, everything that I've learned in the last 9 years, maybe I can start writing it down. That might be a good plan. Keep me occupied. So I started writing down. One Sunday evening, I was looking at the color supplement in a very big newspaper in India called the Times of India. And this really well-traveled guy from India, actually from my city, Bombay, had written an article about wine and how to drink wine or how to enjoy it or how not to. There were a few lines that pissed me completely because they were so condescending. And they're kind of etched in my brain forever. I can never forget them. So I'm going to repeat some of them, and maybe you guys will tell me whether I was wrong. So the guy says, it's really simple to understand wine. You drink white wines and rosé wines cold and red wines cool. And if you cannot understand that, you should stick to ice and water. He then went on. He didn't stop there. He went on to say, drinking a bad wine is like reading comic books when you're growing up. It never allows you to understand or appreciate good literature. And you will never understand and appreciate good wine. That pissed me off. So much so that I sent a fax, because that's all we had, to the editor of the newspaper, another newspaper, because I don't think the Times would have appreciated me talking badly about their author, to another newspaper, which was called The Midday, saying, would you be interested in a series of articles on beverages, spirits, wines, beers, and all of it? And he said, send me a sample. So I put the computer on again, started writing, erased many lines. Then what helped me was a bottle of ouzo that was hiding in the corner. Picked it up, poured some ouzo into my glass with a little cold water. Glass 2 started the first paragraph. By glass 3, I had written 3 articles that I could actually send off to the editor, and he said, yeah, please write for us. And so I had a column. And that allowed me to be in touch with our industry, with the bar that I loved so much, but at the same time, allowed me to actually give information to people who were thirsting for it. And I knew that people wanted to know more because my friends asked me all kinds of questions all the time. And I did not want to write like great literature. I simply wanted to have a conversation with the people who were drinking, to make a connection with them and say, hey, I think I know what you want. And is this the question that you wanted answered? And that's how I began writing. So bartending taught me how to write. It allowed me to become another person. It said, you're a bartender, but you can share that information with everybody, not just with other bartenders, but also with people who want to know more about wine or whiskey or cognac or liqueurs. I started writing for mainstream journals, which is a B2B magazine, hotel magazines, and restaurant magazines, so that I could then communicate with bartenders as well. 7 years later, the year was 1997 now, and suddenly one day it occurred to me that in 1981, when I would have really loved to be able to attend a bartending course, and I couldn't because there was no bartending course, nothing specific that would teach you the skills of bartending in 1981 in India. And I couldn't afford to go anywhere else because I was dead broke. And in 1997, 17 years later, from the time I passed out, there was still no school teaching bartending. And I said, what the hell, if no one else is going to do it, maybe I should. Let me give it a shot. Let me try and understand whether or not people actually want to learn bartending. So in 1997, I put together a little 2-day platform, a kind of a give and take, where people from the industry, from the beverage world, would come and talk to people from food and beverage. And we put together a little competition for bartenders across the F&B trade, as well as those who were still studying bartending or beverages as part of their curriculum in hotel school. We called it Stir. The reason for the name was simply not because we stir. For me, it represented a lot of stuff. It was the year 1997, which meant 50 years of independence, 50 years of Indian independence in 1997. And yet, after 50 years of independence, nobody was talking about the bar at all. Nobody even recognized bartenders. And in fact, for most part, in most hotels, they were not even designated bartenders. They were simply called wait staff or senior wait staff working behind the bar. And I thought it was about time somebody changed that. So stir for me was more a revolution of sorts. It was a word that said, wake up, guys. Get off the apathy. Let's do something. Let's make a change. And that's what we did. We made that change for 2 years in a row, 97 and 98, and I figured that it was the right time now to start the school. And so in 99, I began with Stir Academy of Bartending. I had 5 students, and I taught them really well. And they were the first 5 that actually went out as professionally trained bartenders. There was another reason why I thought that was a good thing to do. I was hanging at a bar one day, just sitting at the corner, because a friend of mine owned that, and he said, will you help me with some stuff? And I said, yeah, sure. And while I was sitting at the corner of the bar, there was someone who came up to the bar and asked the bartender for a Bud Light. I was watching the bartender's face. He was completely fazed. He was thrown. He had no reaction. I have no idea what this guy is talking about. And he was looking around. At one point, he put his hand in his pocket to take out his lighter, because he heard the word light, and he heard the word bud. And I saw him glancing at the corner of his out of the corner of his eye to that little vase on the counter, which had a few flowers in it, and he wasn't sure whether he should look there or he should look at his lighter. And I walked inside the bar, talked to the guest, and said, I'm sorry, we don't have Bud Light, but we have something similar made in India called Kingfisher Light. Are you okay with that? And gave it to him, and this poor kid looked at me, and I said, it's okay, it's not your fault, don't worry. Because we were not exposed to anything from anywhere, we were all so closed. That was another reason why I decided that if nobody's going to do it, I'm going to do it, and that's when I started teaching. It was something that everyone who knew me as a person never expected, because I was this on the floor, on the go person all the time, and teaching. They looked at me, some of my batchmates said, seriously, you're going to teach now? What the hell? Yeah. And so I began teaching and bartending at the same time, because now I could go back. My kid had grown up a little, and I could actually go back to it. I went back, but I didn't go back as a bartender working behind the bar. I went back to set up new bars and therefore work with them when we opened the place till they were completely set and ready. That was in 1998, when they said, will you help us design our new bar and create our menu and do the training? And I said, yeah, sure. And the old bar was exactly like those bars that I worked in, 81, 82, 86. And I said, are you okay if we break this one down? And he said, yes, sure, what do you want to do? I had actually walked into another five-star hotel bar, and I had seen that they had imported their bars from Perlick. I walked in, they were beautiful-looking equipment, but there was zero workflow in that bar. It was a bar, it had all the right equipment, but you couldn't work behind that bar because there was no flow. No one knew. They just said, brand new, shiny bar, looks great in a five-star hotel, but nobody talked about how you work behind a bar. And I thought to myself, whoa, why are we not doing this? We can't afford to get it from them because that's 6 months. They need that much lead time before they can actually design or send something to you. Why are we not doing this? We're making kitchens, right? We're working and we're fabricating stainless steel. Why can we not do this? So I went to the kitchen and I said, when your guy comes, the guy who fabricates all your equipment in the kitchen, would you ask him to come and see me? So he came in and I said, will you help me design a bar here? And he said, do you have the drawings? I said, no, but I will draw them out. I will sketch them out. I will put sizes. I will show you a few pictures for reference. And he said, okay, cool. I can do it. And so in 1998, India got its first indigenous modular stainless steel bar, designed by yours truly. Yeah, I know, sometimes I need to brag a little, but it felt good because now we were working behind a bar that was actually a bar. We had an insulated ice bin, so it wouldn't go all over the place. We didn't have to bend down all the time. Everything was perfect. We had one line on top, one line in the front. People could work without getting hurt, pushed. And I still see today sometimes there are bars where the bar's like this, but the speed rail is 4 inches or 8 inches out. And so if you're on this side, every time you want to move in a fast bar, it's going to hit you. It was a great bar to work in, but I realized that being my first bar and my mathematics not being brilliant, I needed to change that just a little bit to make it even better. So in year 2000, I made my second bar, and that was a breeze to work in. That was absolutely fantastic. Bartending taught me how to design a bar and get it fabricated. It made me understand mathematics better, something that I never learned in the classroom, however hard my teachers tried. But I was able to do that. And therefore, we now had young bartenders in India. The young ones of today take those stainless steel bars for granted. They think they existed. They did not. They absolutely did not. The market was just beginning to open up for us. We were now beginning to get new products that were coming into the market. People were bringing in stuff. Companies like Diageo, Pernod Ricard, Beam Global, Moet Hennessy were looking at India and saying, wow, that is a great market to be in. And so we started seeing new products coming in. And that was fantastic, because we could actually see that all the stuff that we had only learned in books, we could now see them and begin to use them. That was a phase that changed the scene. We evolved one step because now we could actually make drinks. The boys who had learned how to look at flavors and colors with those little tinctures and little liqueurs that we made at home were able to actually see the real stuff and were ready to use it in any way they could. Some of the kids had finally gone out the cruise ship, and they were doing really, really well there. And every time someone spoke to them and said, so where did you learn your bartending skills from? Which school did you go to? And they said, oh, it's a little school called Stir Academy of Bartending in Bombay, India. And they looked at them and said, no, that's not possible. You couldn't possibly have learned the skills of bartending in Bombay, India. But they did. We were just isolated. Nobody knew we existed. There was no internet then. No Google that we could do a search on. That came so much later. But we did survive, and we did great stuff. We had terrible, really, really bad glassware, but we were still able to produce really good-looking drinks in those terrible glassware. Once the market opened up, we had people who came in and started doing master classes, more knowledge. The kids learned even more. They had more opportunity. And then things started changing. Some for the better, some not so great. Now, sometimes I hold myself responsible for some of that bad stuff that happened, because it was in 2000 that I was really inspired by Scott Young of Canada. And I thought, okay, we should teach this kind of really cool style of flair bartending to the kids here. And I brought that in, and I said, okay, I'll teach you how to do that as well. I couldn't even catch a ball, okay? Never been good at catching anything. Perhaps colds, yes, but anything with my hands, no. But I watched his tapes, and I practiced at home, put all the mats out, hurt myself a lot, and started teaching them. And the worst part was I'd spend a week mastering a couple of moves. These guys, once I taught them, it would take them like 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And I'd keep practicing for weeks on end before I could teach them. So we went through this crazy phase where we began doing great stuff on the bar, using flair bartending while we were still mixing drinks. Because at the end of the essence of everything was, at the end of it, if the guy doesn't get a great drink, and if he doesn't have to wait for it just because you're feeling all good about yourself, there's no point to it. And if you're not doing it for the customer, for the guest, if you're just doing it for yourself and you're throwing stuff in the air and all you're looking at is that bottle and you, no point at all. So we went through that brilliant phase where they were doing great drinks, great flair bartending, a lot of style, customer-driven. It was fantastic. And then we went to this really bad phase where then suddenly flair bartending became like a cuss word. It was almost like you were in the circus. And they were making such bad drinks. And I cursed myself saying, man, my fault. Why the hell did I do something so stupid? But we passed through that as well. When the kids really realized that, okay, that's there and this is here. But the world was changing as well. I had a call one day from someone from the media and said, so what do you think of molecular mixology? I was kind of phased for a bit. Molecular mixology, this new thing, she said. And I said, really? New thing? I thought, mixology has always been molecular. What the hell are you talking about? Do you not know that alcohol is a molecule? Do you not know that everything that we use in a bar is a molecule of sorts? And that's what we do. It's physics and chemistry. And thank God I studied physics and chemistry because I had to become a vet. I questioned myself all the time, why the hell am I studying this shit? Till I became a bartender. Because everything is a molecule. Everything is a solution or a suspension. Everything that we do, we shake. That's friction. Friction generates heat, and if you know how to deal with that heat, you have a great drink that's ice cold and has not broken down, has not melted down, because you know that if you were to put more ice than liquid in your shaker when you're shaking, then every time you shake and there is heat generated, the extra ice that you've put in is going to counteract the effects of the friction and help you stop the friction and the heat generated from actually breaking down your drink. Ooh, molecular. I didn't understand a lot of the molecular stuff. The caviar, the air, sometimes really solid stuff in your glass. I kept thinking, if someone comes to my bar, he's coming to my bar because he's thirsty, not hungry. If he was hungry, he'd go to a restaurant, right? Should we? I'm the one who always says, if you don't learn every single day of your life, you're going to die. You may not want something that other people are doing. You may not agree with certain techniques, but you've got to know them to stay on top. You've got to understand it, but you also have to ask yourself the question, why? Do I really need this? Is it going to make a massive difference to the palate of someone who's drinking my drink? Is it going to shatter his world and say, wow? Yes? Then sure, go ahead, use that technique. Spend that time, do whatever the hell you want. But is technique the only thing that matters? Is your entire universe going to be centered around only technique? I don't think so. Because when you do that, you're oblivious to everything around you. You're oblivious to the most important person who makes you a bartender, and that's the guest. So looking around at it today, I see great science at work. So much so that I sometimes wonder if these guys are really bartenders or are they scientists? They have labs. Ooh, how exciting. Wow, no one spent that kind of money on us. They have centrifuge machines. The first time I saw one and I said, oh, that's what in the path lab. They do that, they check your blood for Christ's sake. What are you guys doing with this here? Sous vide. A guy asked me one day, what is the sous vide? Do I really need to use it? I said, understand it. There are merits. There's some stuff that you can do with it, great stuff. But think about it and then decide whether you think it works for you or it doesn't work for you. It's okay. So if you want to put something into a bag, and if you want to seal it and steam it and allow it to come together, and if that works for you, you should use it. By all means. We did it without sous vide machines. We just took a damn pot of boiling water and chucked stuff in and said, okay, and now we are ready, out. I'm okay with it. And then came fat washing. The first time I read about that, I was thinking to myself, sheesh, what the hell is happening in the world today? Fat washing? Does it work? I wish somebody could use that damn technique on me and wash the fucking fat away, man. Will it work? Really? Oh my God. I had a drink yesterday which was fat washed with burnt brown butter and mushrooms. It was not bad at all. Not bad at all. But the one that defeated me the most, and I'm not saying it's a wrong technique, okay? Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it defeated me, was the clarified milk punch. Suddenly, everyone was going crazy. Everyone was going completely nuts. Here I was sitting at a bar talking to these young kids, and they were telling me about how it dripped through something for 5 days, and it was crystal clear. And I said, but does your customer know it? Is he saying wow to that drink? That's it. I have just one thing. Does the guest know how much effort you put? Is he looking at your drink? Is he sipping it and saying, whoa, I've never had something like this ever? And if I had to put another drink that I made which did not go through a process, and he would sip that drink, would he also say, oh man, this is brilliant? Use technique. Make great drinks. But don't forget at the end of the day that if you're going to pass all the effort and then load the price of your drink because of all the time that you took, think again. Is it really, really making that much of a difference to your drink? If it does, use it. If it doesn't, forget it. It's okay, as long as you know how to do it. Don't be ignorant at any stage. Never be ignorant. Looking around, I was looking around at all of these things, and again, a few things that struck me. The word mixologist. Suddenly, the word bartender was a bad word. What the hell happened? Everybody was a mixologist. I was thinking to myself, man, I was crazy. I spent fucking 20 years trying to figure out all of it. And after 20 years, even then I was afraid, can I call myself a mixologist? Do I know enough to use that word? What does it mean? Does it simply mean standing there and mixing drinks? Because I can teach my maid to do that at home. And if I teach her those 6 drinks, she'll do a damn good job of it. But if I ask her a question on anything that went inside, would she be able to answer me? No. If you don't know everything about every bottle that's behind your bar, and if you don't know how it will affect everything that you do, because every whiff, every nose, every sip over the last 40 years have taught me about history, about culture, about tradition, about geography. The one thing I was terrible at in school, history and geography. I hated it. I could never remember dates about world wars and when that happened. No, never. I would fail at it miserably. And then suddenly, I knew everything about history and geography. Because every bottle taught me history, taught me geography. Every drink taught me about a time in our world that something great happened. I could now remember when there was prohibition in the United States. I could now remember what happened in Russia with the Russian Revolution. I knew World War I and World War II. I knew what the hell a French 75 was, not just a drink. I understood the meaning of the word kamikaze a little better. I think it's suicidal to drink those even today. And therefore, I think the person that I am today is only possible because I was a bartender. It taught me how to be patient. It taught me how to be nice. It taught me to stand there and smile in the face of some crazy shit that was happening in the bar. Very often, water would shut down. I would have no glasses. I'd have 500 people in front of me in a nightclub wanting their drinks, and I had no glasses. And I'd get one of the kids to say, "Shit, man, what are we going to do? Get shots ready in your damn mixing glasses. Climb on top of the damn bar, pour in everyone's faces so that we get 10 minutes breathing space till we get the glasses back, and let's just, God, give up the drinks." You learn sign language when you work in a nightclub because you can't for the life of you hear anything. You just cannot. And you're talking to the guy and say, "You want a big, small?" And you show him a bottle. What do you want as a mixer? You become pretty good at that. And that's what makes you who you are. You can survive almost anything if you are a great bartender. And give me a great bartender any day over a mediocre mixologist. I will stand next to him and I will work. And I'm very proud to say I'm still a bartender. And I'm a pretty damn good bartender, even if I say so myself. And I'm okay if no one calls me a mixologist. I'm all right with it. I'm okay because I know what I'm doing, right? And all those drinks, people talk about, somebody was talking about patents and stuff like that. Sheesh, if you lived in India, you'd realize that that's not possible. Okay, the law, oh my God, it's crazy. I wrote a book. I sued my publisher. Guess what? I won. I had to buy back the books from him. I didn't get anything, but I had to, and I was okay with that. But I still had to give him money to get my books back from him. Think about patenting a goddamn drink. Are you serious? No way. But for me, you know what? Every time I went out and I found somebody had used my drink, and every time I found that they were using my recipes to go out there and make those drinks, every time I saw it on a blog or someone on YouTube mixing a drink that I know I created, I felt pretty damn good. Because unless it was really, really good, nobody was going to be making it. And that's okay. That's all right. So just think about this whole evolution from where we began with nothing. Here now, we had the whole world in front of us. Though our laws are crazy even today, for the first 6 months of this year, we had almost no great alcohol in the country. especially Bombay and Delhi. Bombay especially. Because someone sitting in the commissioner's office decided that they want to mess with us. And they messed with us. Anyone here from Pernod Ricard? Okay, never mind that. Someone should ask them the story of why Beefeater gin wasn't there. You don't want to know. I promise you that. I promise you that. So, we had mixology, we had mixologists. I like to work with some techniques, okay? I like using smoke. I think certain drinks become really, really nice when you add a little wood chip to it. Opens up flavors, does some crazy stuff, and does some great things. I like using foam every once in a while, but I'm very often, I come against this whole group of vegetarians. And in India, we have a lot of vegetarians. And they don't like egg in their drink. So I learned a long time ago how to make a really great whiskey sour without using any eggs. And then we came up with an idea, and I said, let's give this a shot. How about, because I'm not into using gelatin and agar-agar and all these strange things. Definitely no carbon dioxide and liquid nitrogen. I think it's a waste of time. Why put extra chemicals into something when you can make fantastic, fantastic drinks without them? And I thought, let me give this a shot. Yogurt. Why can we not use yogurt to make a really nice foam? And that's what I did. I made this amazing whiskey sour using, and we have these superb spices that we can draw upon. And I had fresh passion fruit, and I had some great passion fruit puree, and I decided, suppose if I make a passion fruit and curry leaf whiskey sour. And then, since I'm not going to use egg, can I just make a really nice foam on top? What should I flavor it with? And I thought, okay, how about mango and chili? Because I'm thinking citrus, the mango and passion fruit works well. Coconut works really well with passion fruit. I made one where I mixed the yogurt. I kind of drained out the water a little bit, added just that smidgen of cream, just to hold it together, and did mango chili in one and did mango coconut in the other. And then got it all together, made 2 drinks, got the foam up. I was waiting for it to collapse and to see if it was holding perfectly. It held perfectly. There was no trouble at all. So it's all about, I think, going out, looking at techniques that are there, and then trying to adapt them, trying to work with them to see. Don't keep a closed mind. Keep it open, because you don't know what might work, and you don't know how it will help you shape the drinks that you want to make. The other thing that worries me a lot, and this is because I come from India, where we started probably 100 years or so after everyone else in the world when it came to bartending, maybe even more. Dimi, how many years? 100 at least? Yeah? Okay. Now, the rest of the world started with prohibition and before, and then went round, did everything, made a hell of a lot of drinks, some good, some bad, some really ugly, and then came back and started looking at the past all over again and said, oops, why are we not doing where we began? What are our roots? Let's go back to making speakeasies. Let's go back to making prohibition drinks. Let's go back to the classics before the classics. Let's go back to the 1900s. We had only gone here. We hadn't done the good, bad, and the ugly completely. And suddenly from here, we were cutting across to come right back here because we had to catch up with the rest of the world. We didn't have time to wait, to discover, to make our own big mistakes. We had to catch up with the rest of the world. We had to say, oh my God, everyone's doing it. We've got to do it. Now, whether or not my guests were ready for it or not, I still had to do it. I have to make only old fashions. I must do only shrubs. I must make a crosta. I must do juleps. What the hell is the difference between the julep and the smash? Am I screwed? Did I say something wrong? Oh my God, it happened to me. I made a drink. The ideology I was using was that of a julep. I decided that I would make this really great julep for a really great Indian single malt, and I added some fruit to it to up it a little bit and one little hint of chili. I think it was a fantastic drink. Then I get a message on my phone from a very close friend of mine who said, I've got a message from this really good bartender I met, and he says that you've made a big mistake. That's not a julep, that's a smash. What do you think? I was like, oh, sheesh, what the hell happened? And then I thought, let's see what Jerry Thomas, because, I mean, he's the man, right? Let's see what Jerry Thomas has to say about it. Maybe I've made a mistake. If I have, I'm happy to say I'm sorry. I'm good with that. I'm really good with that. What did Jerry Thomas say? The smash is just a julep on a small plan. I sent him a message back saying, well, Jerry Thomas says this. I'm saying that this is my julep on an edited plan. And if someone doesn't like it, that's too bad. I think it's sad because they're working with blinders now. They're forgetting everything. They're actually doing this and saying, oh, this is it. There is no only truth. Everything changes. Everything evolves. Everything is about change because that's the only thing that's constant. Change. How do we work around it? And people talk about perfection. What the hell is perfection? Mirror, mirror on the wall? Really? Am I the fairest? Oh, come on. How can my drink be absolutely perfect? Now, I may think that I've made this brilliant drink and it's absolutely perfect, and it's probably 90% perfect. But what happens if you walk into my bar and you don't like it? You think it's okay, but it could be better because you think you would like it a little sweeter or you could like it a little less sweet. Am I going to say, go home? Sorry, if you don't like my drink, too bad. Don't come to my bar. That's what's happening today. The scientists are looking down. They're not looking at you. They don't care. They're just looking at their drink, serious as bloody hell. I mean, come on. Learn how to laugh at yourselves. It's good for you. Don't look so serious. And don't be so arrogant. Who's paying your salary? You think your boss is? It's the guest who comes to your bar. If he doesn't come to your bar, who's going to pay your salary? And at the end of the day, who the hell made you who you are? Who made you? If there were no guests, would you exist? Would we exist as bartenders if no one came to our bar? So how on earth can we be so arrogant to say, well, I can decide whether I want you in my bar or not. And if I don't like you, you can go. And if you don't like my drinks, well, I don't think you deserve a drink at my bar because you don't know any better. How many people know bars like that or bartenders with that kind of an attitude? No one? Oh, you're lying. You know that, right? You know you are. At the end of it, looking forward, the only guy who finally matters is the customer. If we can't have fun on the bar, what's the point? I miss that. I miss having fun on the bar. I miss the time spent chatting with people who came, doing a couple of tricks just to make him laugh, talking about anything on earth. That's what we need to do. And then talking to him, which allowed me to understand where he's coming from, therefore being able to make a drink for him that is just almost perfect for him. I started out wanting to be a vet, wanting to help animals. I realized that I was finally still helping animals, just of another kind, because that's who we are, aren't we? And everything that I looked inside my glass to find, the knowledge, the history, the culture, all of that, I looked deep inside those glasses that I poured everything into. And I think at the end of the day, it was the glass that found me and made me the person who I am. If it wasn't for bartending, I do not think that I could have been the person who could have done so many different things, and I continue doing those different things because it gives you the power to look at bartending from so many different angles. And you can teach, and you can be on TV and do TV shows. You can talk to people, help them understand what we are all about and what drinks are all about. Get them, especially speaking to customers. And that's what I did. And I thought I found bartending, but I think bartending found me. Thank you very much for listening to me, ladies and gentlemen. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, if you want to ask me questions, feel free.
Thank you so much, Shatbhi.
If you don't, you can catch me wherever I am. But thank you so much.
Give a big round of applause for Shatbhi again. Thank you very much for sharing with us today.